Hello there, and welcome back to another episode of Coffee Break Blogging. I am dutifully sipping a cup of coffee right now while we talk about blogging, hence the name. Anywho, what we're going to be talking about today is how to use social media to distribute, if I can even say that, our blog post. Now, this is an important topic, but it also, I want to make sure that everybody listening sees this in context of the bigger picture. And in fact, if you back up to the last 3 episodes of this podcast where we did talk about paid traffic and kind of put everything in context there, I hope by now you understand that doing what we're about to talk about on this episode, it works, but it's also limited, and that you're going to get the most bang if we use paid traffic along in conjunction with everything. But what we're going to be talking about here is primarily quote unquote free. We're going to be talking about using social media to get traffic to our blog post. Now, for many bloggers, this happens to be the only way that they really promote the blog post. So the typical sequence of action would be that you write the blog post, you proofread it, maybe prep it up a little bit, hit publish, and then you proceed to go to Facebook and share it, go to Twitter and tweet it, maybe a few other networks, maybe Google+, and that's it. That's essentially your traffic generation strategy. Now, if you're in this ballpark, if you're in this boat yourself, don't feel bad about it, because that's a pretty typical thing to do. And it's because very often we don't really know what else to do. And this is the easiest thing to do, is to share our stuff on social media. So I understand. But at the same time, we want to make sure that if we're going to share on social media, which you obviously should be doing, even if you're doing any of the other strategies, you want to at least get as much bang out of it as you possibly can. So there's a free way of putting things out on social media, which is primarily what we're going to be talking about today. And then there's the paid way. Now, I hinted about a strategy with doing it the paid way in the last episode, I think it was, in 89, where we were talking about retargeting. And I talked about how you can actually put an ad on Facebook, a sponsored post on Facebook that drives new readers directly into a piece of blog content. So you're not sending them into a sales message, into a registration, into a squeeze page. No, you're actually sending them directly into a blog post. And because it's content and Facebook loves content, you're typically going to be able to get much lower cost per click on that, and you're going to maybe get some reshares of the actual ad because it actually is content. So that, of course, helps drive your cost down, and you get some free traffic out of it. So you do that by you're basically priming that blog post by paying for it and actually paying to distribute your new content on Facebook. Now, that's effective. It's highly effective. But there is also the free route, which is what most people are doing. So let's talk about Facebook first. With Facebook, the first thing you want to do is obviously you want to drop your link in there. But the thing is, we want to make sure that it's a link post that has an image. You want to make sure that you have an image on it because it's going to help it get noticed a lot more. Now, it should go without saying that you want the image to be compelling. Now, I also think that it should be congruent. So even though you're not paying for it here, what I mean is that the image that they see should coincide with the image that they're going to see when they get to the blog post. So that way they very obviously know what it is. So you're going to have the title of your blog post, you're going to have the image, you're going to have a link. Now, the post itself is going to be linked automatically to your blog, but I also think that you should have the URL to the blog post, or a shortened URL like bit.ly or something, in the actual text of the Facebook post as well. Because a lot of people are going to click on that. A lot of people are going to see that. It will be the first link that they see, is actually the actual URL right in the text of the post. So what you'll probably do is have some teaser text, something that spikes their curiosity. Don't just copy and paste the darn headline into Facebook. You want to spike their curiosity and really make them want to read that blog post. And then underneath that, you put the actual full URL to the blog post. And then underneath that, you'll have the actual link post itself, which will be the image, the headline, a little bit of the description, and stuff like that. Now, what you might have struggled with in the past is how do you control what that post looks like? Well, it's easy actually. If you use the WordPress SEO plugin, which is definitely a really, really nice plugin for WordPress, if you want to, increase the SEO efficiency of your blog, it happens to have a section in there. I think it's under a little tab that says social. And it's, on every single blog post. And you can actually control what image is going to be pulled in by Facebook, what the exact title of the post. So you can actually title it differently if you want. I mean, you can have the headline that Facebook displays actually be different than the actual blog post headline. And you can do that with WordPress SEO. You can also control the little description text that shows up underneath the headline. So you can control everything rather than letting Facebook figure it out on its own, which it sometimes does a bad job of. So use the WordPress SEO plugin, completely and totally free, but you can actually go to that social tab and specifically enter those fields so that you know that whenever anybody, including yourself, shares that post on Facebook, it will at least appear correctly. Okay? Now, so that is Facebook. Let's move on to Twitter. Now, with Twitter also has the ability to do image posts. So you don't have to only do a text, tweet and then the link. You can also include an image. And so if you're on twitter.com or you're in a client like Hootsuite or something like that, you'll actually see images going along with the tweets. So of course, you as the provider of that tweet, you are going to get more visual, you're taking up more visual real estate by having that image. So I do recommend that you actually do one. Now, you can just simply use the same image that you are using on Facebook and just include that in there as an image post on Twitter, okay? Now, the other really, really important thing about Twitter, and this is key, is that unlike Facebook, with Twitter, you're going to have to repeat yourself often because Twitter has a very, very high noise ratio. So the thing is, if you are retweeting your own blog post and you only do that once and you think that your job is done and that all of your followers are going to see it, think again. It's a very low percentage actually of your followers that are likely to see that thing. We're all on Twitter at different times of the day, blah, blah, blah. But the thing is that tweet is just racing by in the stream of tweets that your audience also follows. You're not the only person they follow. Okay. So chances are they're not going to see it. Now, the way around that is that you need to retweet your own blog post multiple times. You're going to have to do it over and over and over again. What I actually do is that when I post a blog post at the Blog Marketing Academy, we have a little schedule in place that same blog post is going to get tweeted out to my account several times over the course of that week. Several times. And we vary the text too. Sometimes it's just a headline and a link. Other times I'll take excerpts from the blog post and turn that into a tweetable and put the link and throw it out there. Sometimes I will kind of ask a question or do some kind of a tease and then put the link there. So I'll vary it up. It's not like I'm saying the exact same thing with every tweet. But the important thing is that you do it multiple times. You absolutely have to. And you need to do it at different times of the day because everybody is on Twitter at different times. I mean, think about the typical points of the day that people are likely to go looking at Twitter. You might have, some time in the morning when they're getting ready in the morning to go to work or something. Think about what they might be doing that we all tend to do in the morning. And we happen to have our phone. All right, I'm not going to go any deeper than that, but think about it. So tweet something in the morning. They're more likely to see it. Also around lunchtime during the day, when the workday is over, in the evening. I mean, just think about the times where people are most likely to be on Twitter and put out tweets on those times, okay? And vary it up a little bit. So that's Twitter. Now let's look over to Pinterest. Now, Pinterest it can work really well as a traffic generator. Now, it does vary depending on niche. If you're in certain markets like, certain homemaking or recipes, nutrition, things like that, Pinterest can work really well for you. If you're in an e-commerce space of any kind, it can work really well for you. Other markets, it can still work well, but maybe not as well as those other ones. But you should be putting things out to your Pinterest boards. So it's very simple. We've already been talking about the image. Well, Pinterest is very image focused. So you're going to put that image out on Pinterest. Now, you could vary it up and create a unique image just for Pinterest that is designed to be much more visually attractive. Infographics can work really well over there. An image that maybe has some kind of a teaser in it to make them want to click on it. Essentially, it's like a little ad for your blog post, and you put that out there on Pinterest. Okay, so that's one way to do it with Pinterest. Moving on to LinkedIn, you should share your stuff on LinkedIn, but you got to keep in mind that LinkedIn is kind of a B2B network. It's kind of a business-oriented social network. So if you're blogging about your cat or something, don't put it up on LinkedIn. Okay, take into account the market that you're in and determine whether it would be worth it to put it on LinkedIn. If you are, then it works very similar to Facebook, image. Same basic ideas that we've already talked about with Facebook will work on LinkedIn. Okay? The last one I'm going to mention is Google+. Now, Google+ is an important network to use because it's got the word Google on it, and they control a crap ton of traffic, right? So the more +1s we get over there, the better our domain and our content looks like in the eyes of Google. So we do want people to share our stuff, and we need to share our stuff. Now, Google+ is one of the weird networks that you can use external clients to post to a page, but you cannot use an external client to post to your personal profile on Google+. So therefore, you will need to do it manually, whatever. I actually my VA has my login, and she can post to my Google+ account for me. So that's kind of my way of automating it. But we do put our content out on Google+, and whatever happens to it, happens to it. Now, if you want to really increase the +1s over there, and then you need to be also engaged on Google+ and get into the comments. And, the more engaged you are, the more engagement you're going to have with your activity on Google+. Otherwise, it's going to be basically link dropping and a few random +1s. And that's about what you'll expect from Google+. Okay? Google+ is definitely can be a powerful network, but you've got to put the work into it to get it back out. Now, with all these different networks we've talked about, I want to mention, again, the idea of doing a paid bump for a new blog post. So here's the thing. When you put out a new blog post, especially if you think it's a really good one that has the potential of having some legs to it, it actually would be worth it for you to actually pay to bump it up a little bit. So in the world of Facebook, this would be something like you post it to your page, and then you pay to boost it. So you boost the post. And if you want, you could set up a paid Twitter ad or something like that to do the same thing. But typically, this is done on Facebook. Now, you don't spend a lot of money on this. You might spend $5 or $10 to boost the post. But here's what you do is you then see if it has legs, if people start to reshare it or anything like that. If you start to notice that it's performing fairly well organically, then you know that you might be able to spend more money to get people over there. But you look at that boost, that paid bump of that new blog post is like a little investment to kick it off, get a little bit of traffic to it, and just kind of see what happens. If it doesn't really resonate, doesn't really have any real organic reach to it in terms of more than anything else, then maybe you won't boost it again. But then you'll know. Otherwise, you're completely dependent on the organic reach of Facebook, which is getting smaller and smaller every darn day. Okay, so you might want to consider this. When you put out a decent blog post, be willing to spend, $5, $10, and boost it. and kind of see what happens, kind of kick it out there a little bit. At the worst case scenario, you'll get more shares on Facebook than you would have otherwise. Because if they like the post, all they got to do is like it. It counts as a share for you. Not a share, but if you have one of those social media plugins on the blog post, you're going to get the number going up, which is good for your social proof and your credibility, okay? Now, a few tools that I use for this. I'm not going to get that deep into this right now because I do have an episode coming up where we're going to talk more about it. But I actually use an app called CoSchedule to control all this. So I set up these things, at least the ones that CoSchedule works with, in advance for every blog post. And then once I hit the publish button on that blog post, all this stuff just kind of happens automatically. And especially Twitter, because like I said, with Twitter, we need to reshare it multiple times. Well, the last thing I want to do is sit there and have to retweet that thing over and over again. So we set the schedule up in advance. And then once I hit the publish button, it just goes on automatic and it will publish that thing multiple times using varied wording, all stuff that I wrote in advance before the thing was published. So that's CoSchedule. Another one is Hootsuite, really, really nice social media client, but it does, off the top of my head, I'm trying to remember if you need to have a paid account to schedule things. Maybe not. But what I was going to say is you can schedule shares in advance. So you can actually spend the time, schedule out the retweets for your blog post for the next, 5 to 7 days after you publish it. So you can get those multiple retweets without having to do it manually. And you can do that with a tool like Hootsuite. Another one, and the last one I'll mention, is Buffer at bufferapp.com. You probably have heard of it. But you can actually set up a nice schedule and add retweets of your own content into your buffer so that it will go out on automatic. But basically, at the end of the day, we want to have a strategy in place that utilizes each of these social networks in the way that they're meant to be utilized. And keeping in mind Twitter, you need to kind of bang it over and over again. But we don't want to have to do it manually because we've all got better things to do. Okay, so use a tool. And in my case, I use CoSchedule. Now, if you want to take this deeper and really figure out how to put a whole social media / syndication strategy in place, then here's a little trick for you, something that you can grab at the Blog Marketing Academy for much cheaper than you otherwise would be able to do. If you go to blogmarketingacademy.com and go to any blog post, you will see in the sidebar an opt-in for what I call the pre-publish checklist. So this is a checklist that you run every blog post through in order to properly prepare it in order to get maximum leverage from it after you've published it, okay? Now, once you opt in for that, you are going to have the opportunity to buy my syndication action plan. It's actually a blog traffic action plan, and you'll have the opportunity to buy that for just $7, which that's the only way you can get it at this rate. And so what this is basically everything that we just talked about on this episode, plus a lot more, because we go into a real step-by-step action plan on how to syndicate every blog post that you do and distribute it out there. And it's all in that action plan. You can get it for just $7 by going to the Blog Marketing Academy, opting into the pre-published checklist, and then you'll have the opportunity to grab that action plan. The only other way to get it is to become a Blog Monetization Lab member, and you can learn more about that at blogmonetizationlab.com. Okay? All right, I will see you on the next episode where we're going to go a little bit further into our syndication strategy here, but hopefully you found this one valuable in how to use social media to distribute your blog post. Okay? Talk again soon.